you probably know the Clintons better than any other candidate in this race. How do you assess her candidacy so far?
Republicans under to 20 years before I ended up winning office. Every race I ever had, I ran against their machinery, I ran against their money, and frankly, both Bill and Hillary Clinton came back and campaigned personally in the state for every opponent I ever had. Now, to be fair, as Michael Corleone would have said, it wasn't personal, it was just business. But it was tough business, and you know the Clintons very well. They play to win, and anyone who thinks that she's going to get into this half-heartedly, well, they've never, ever encountered the will, the spirit, the heart, and the determination of the Clinton political machinery.
Rand Paul, taking her on most directly, says he's going to hold both Clintons accountable for what he calls their shenanigans. He called Bill Clinton a sexual predator. Is that the way to go?
I don't think that's going to be necessary to get into a lot of personal attacks. I've never felt that that's really a wholesome way to enter politics. I think the issues are far more important than some of the personal issues, at least if you're a candidate running against another person. Now, you're not going to be able to stop the press. You're not going to be able to stop the bloggers. There are going to be plenty of people bringing that sort of stuff up, whether it's about her or about every other candidate. But some of us have got to decide that we would like to have a campaign about the future of America, more about the future of America and about working people who are getting busted in the gut by these economic policies that have left a lot of middle-class people working harder with less to show. And that really needs to be the focus, not on what someone once did years ago. Foreign
policy also at issue. We just heard Secretary Kerry talk about the new opening to Cuba, and President Obama is calling for lifting the embargo, which kind of matches the position you had back in 2002 when you were governor. You wrote that U.S. policy in Cuba has not accomplished its stated goal of toppling the Castro regime. Instead, it has provided Castro with a convenient excuse for his own failed system of government. I urge you to join me in lifting the failed embargo. If the embargo was failed then, I know you've changed your position, but if the embargo was failed then, why keep it now?
Well, George, I have to admit, I think I was wrong about some of those positions. I do think we need to hold Castro, both Raul and Fidel, more responsible for the fact that they kidnapped people, they stole their property, they murdered people, they robbed them of their human rights. And, you know, if you look at it strictly from an economic standpoint, you might be able to make the case that lifting the embargo could be healthy for farmers, healthy for certain people. But I'm not sure you can say that it's going to be healthy for democracy unless there is a complete repudiation of the policies that have left political prisoners in place in Cuba. So until there's some recognition of basic human rights and some reparations made for those who have been run over by the Castro machine, no, I don't think that sitting down, making nice and yucking it up with Raul Castro, who was personally involved in the shooting down of the Christian Brothers airplane and involved in some murderous activities and kidnappings of Americans in the 50s, really makes a lot of sense right now.
You won Iowa back in 2008, but your chairman in Iowa then, Bob Vanderplaats, said you can't take support for granted this time around. And it really looks like Ted Cruz, who got in a couple weeks ago, is going after your voters there. He just announced that super PACs aligned with him have raised an astonishing $31 million since his launch. Can you compete with that?
Well, I did the last time. I was outspent 10-1 by both Romney and McCain, and I beat Romney and came in second to McCain. We're going to have a lot more money if I run this time. There's no doubt about that. That's very clear to me and very evident by the amount of support that I'm seeing committed. Whether I'll have as much as some of the other people, I may not. But I think Americans ultimately don't want a candidate that's just the best finance candidate. They want one with the best ideas, and particularly they want one that understands that the economy is not recovering for a lot of people. When people can give that kind of money, they're probably in pretty darn good shape. But what about the people who can't give $1 million? Who's fighting for them? That's going to be, I think, a focus that people like me are going to be talking about.
You wrote in your book that people shouldn't be able to hold office and run for another office at the same time. So does that mean the three senators who look like they're in the race right now, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, and Marco Rubio getting in tomorrow, you think they should resign their offices?
Well, it's ultimately up to them. But, George, how do you do an office, do your job if you never show up? And why should taxpayers be on the hook to pay people for a job they're not doing and essentially subsidize their campaign with federal taxpayer dollars? Guys like me, guys like Rick Perry, others who have left office, we're not going to be able to live off the taxpayers. I was a governor 10.5 years. I can tell you this, as a governor, that's a full-time job. It's a 24/7, 365 job. How do you say I'm going to run for president full-time and I'm also going to serve, whether it's a governor or a senator or a congressman? I just don't know how a person can pull that off. And if you want a different job, I know this during the time that I worked for Roger Ailes over at Fox. If I had been consistently going over to ABC and asking you guys for a job and never showed up at work at Fox, I don't think Roger would have kept me on the payroll. I'm pretty sure he would have turned me loose, as he should have. So I just believe that people, if they want a new job, be honest about it and say, this one isn't satisfying to me. I really don't want this one anymore. I'm going to resign. And I'll go after the job that I really want, which is President of the United States.
And we'll be looking for your announcement soon. Governor Huckabee, thanks very much.